My name is Alex Sokol. I am a web developer at Lightricks. And today, for the next 15 minutes, I want to share with you a few thoughts about animations for the navigation in our web application. Now, this talk, came out of a sort of a frustration that I noticed in myself recently while just clicking through the web. Some websites felt okay, they were really smooth and felt rich, but most suddenly started feeling to me a bit clunky, a bit clumsy, a bit twitchy. And it wasn't due to performance reasons. Performance-wise, I could see that they were okay. Firefox suddenly started feeling worse, sometimes even worse than Safari, which seems just illegal. Now, soon enough, I came to realize it was about how those websites handle the navigation, specifically the transition between pages. And let me give you an example. You see, in most websites, this transition is non-existent. It's just a flash cut from one page to another. And in many cases, this is okay, and this is totally fine. It's even something we came to expect. But in this, again, very simple and no third-party dependency application, I tried out something called the view transitions. Now, for those of you who might be not lucky enough to be familiar with this API, let me briefly introduce it to you. A view transition is a browser feature. It's a browser API. It basically allows us animating any DOM change, whether this change is caused by navigation from one page to another or by us manually updating the DOM from GS code. We can customize it like we would customize any other CSS animation, keyframes, easing functions, duration, whatever. And for me here, the navigation was the most interesting part because you see, by adding a couple lines of CSS, I enabled this feature in my multi-page application. And it just worked. It just gave me the default transition, which is a nice crossfade between pages. And if I wanted to animate my own DOM updates, I had the JS counterpart to this API, where I could take any function updating the DOM, wrap it into a start view transition method, and the browser will just know to animate this change almost magically. And there are many more things we can do with this. We can provide an asynchronous callback to this method. We can match the element before and after transition, and the browser will again, almost magically, know how to animate it from one state to another. So already I kind of love this feature. And since I realized that I actually care about those existing flash cuts and that I had an easy and enjoyable time animating them, I decided to integrate this into a big production-level Next.js project I was a part of. So I opened the LTX website. I selected some navigation there and decided to start by giving to the user a value of animating this flash cut transition. I honestly thought that it would be as quick and enjoyable as it was in the previous case. And after some amount of work, after a fair amount of struggle, I have finally gave up. You see, I started by trying to animate the navigation, but in the SPA, our changing of the route, changing of the path name, jumping between pages, name it what you will, is not a navigation in the browser understanding, usually. There is no full page reload. There is no new document when we do this. This is more like a state change. So in this case, the browser just doesn't understand that it has something to animate. But okay, we have the second counterpart to our API. And I would think, and I thought, that just by wrapping my navigate call into this magical method, all my problems will be solved. Of course, they weren't. And to understand why, I had to take a step back and do something I should have done from the very beginning, and to figure out how those view transitions actually worked for me in the first place. You see, when we tell the browser we want to animate a change to the DOM, again, whether by navigating or calling start view transition, the browser will take a DOM snapshot, which is a fairly low-level representation of what is going to be rendered on the screen. This snapshot is shown to the user while the browser runs the updates to the DOM. Again, navigating or manual updates. After this, the browser will take a second snapshot and animate the diff between the two. Sounds great, only, of course, in React specifically, our navigate call is not where the DOM updates are happening. It's where the DOM updates are scheduled. And unless you do something horribly interesting, like wrapping every navigate call you have into a flash sync, the actual DOM updates will come sometime later. React knows when, most likely after the browser has taken the second snapshot and found nothing to animate. Can we do something about this? Well, as I mentioned, start view transition actually works with an async callbacks. So that means we can return a promise from it, a promise that will be awaited, and only after this promise resolves, the browser will take the second snapshot. Well, that sounds just like what we need. So we need to create some promise, return it from start view transition, await the actual DOM update, and once the navigation is complete, resolve it. And that will tell the browser to wait and take the second snapshot only when we are on a new page. And that actually works. And this interesting workaround is even used in some libraries like React Router, which actually gives us inbuilt support for the view transition starting from a certain version. But in, for example, Next.js, where we don't have this inbuilt support, we can try to find some third party that does this, or maybe even try to build this ourselves. We have an ability, to create a promise, return it from the start view transition, pass it to some other part of the app that will listen to the route change, resolve it on route change, handle a bunch of corner cases, and wrap our every navigate call and link into some function that will do all this. And again, this works. This actually gives us the animation that I wanted. But the simplicity that I have assumed from the beginning seems to have been lost along this way. At that point, I decided that maybe the nice animation would be not worth the increased complexity, especially since the React team is actually working on a component to provide us these capabilities. Now, this is in Canary right now, Canary and experimental, but this is rather a promising effort. This is supposed to be combining the view transition feature of browsers with the transition feature of React, by the way, not to be confused, those two. And it should give us the best of two worlds, if you will. It should abstract away all those problems that we just saw with timing the first snapshot, timing DOM update, timing the second snapshot, and give us that all solved in a form of React component, and still leave us with the power to animate those animations, to animate those transitions with the power of CSS, like we would in any other case. Now, this is, at least yet, does not seem to solve all 100% of the issues we might have with the integrating of the view transitions into an SPA, but it certainly looks like we will have an easier time doing that. When it's stable, that is. But unless it is, what do we have on our hands? We have a simple and yet quite powerful API, like all good APIs should be, that is part of a browser standard, even though Firefox is still catching up. We have a feature that I believe can provide a good value, at least in the cases where you don't need to do this dance of managing additional setup, and when it just works for you out of the box. By the way, it especially shines for animating an appearance and disappearance of elements. And the navigation is exactly this case, right? Let me tell you, by the way, the animated navigation, well, it might not be the feature that you immediately notice once you've added it, but it's something that once you have added it and got used to it, and then it got removed for some reason, when you notice the absence of it. So have a look, decide for yourself if you consider this to be cooked enough for your production code. If you do not forget to be a good citizen and check for the browser support, check for the user preferences regarding reduced motion. But even if you do not, definitely try it out, give it a whirl, and see how easy it is to build really cool stuff with it. So build something amazing with it. Thank you. This is all from me for today.